requested that I read to you guys, and so I have one of the most popular books here. This is Acceleration by Ted Chiang, and these are some fiction short stories, and I picked out one. Oh no. My boyfriend and I are reading this and I just lost the page that he was in. Oh, pray for me. Anyway, if you have not heard of this book, it's really good. We've read 3 short stories in here so far, and if you like a Black Mirror sci-fi vibe, this book is so good. And I think that was one of the things that my boyfriend does not read fiction. He loves like very techy books about just learning stuff, and so this is the first fiction book that he genuinely enjoys. Before we get started, I did just want to, again, because I'm on the roll, I'm filming a bunch of videos, but I am still wearing the Lucky Chick Lip Lacquer. It's a lip gloss in the shade Paradise. And like I mentioned in the other video, I absolutely love this shade. I absolutely love this shade because it's not doing too much, but it's not like super sheer where you can't even tell that I'm wearing something. So I absolutely love it. And if you already couldn't tell, this is gonna be going in and out of like soft whispers and almost inaudible whispering. I'm always like dancing, just like. But anyway, I'm gonna set that down and get right into it. Let me give you guys some these book sounds. I'm just gonna get some of it. The short story that I have chosen for us today is about 10 pages, so it's not too long and it's not too short. Let's get right into it. It is called Daisy's Patent Automatic Nanny. Daisy's Patent Automatic Nanny. So this goes from the catalog accompanying the exhibition, Little Defective Adults Attitude Towards Children from 1700 to 1950, National Museum of Psychology, Akron, Ohio. Fuck Ohio. Go Michigan. Just kidding. Okay. Anyway, the Automatic Nanny was the creation of Reginald Daisy, a mathematician born in London in 1861. Daisy's original interest was in building a teaching engine inspired by the recent advances in gramophone technology. He sought to convert the arithmetic mill of Charles Babbage's proposed analytical engine into a machine capable of teaching grammar and arithmetic by rote. Daisy envisioned it not as a replacement for human instruction, but as a labor-saving device to be used by school teachers and governesses. For years, Daisy worked diligently on his teaching engine, and even the death of his wife, Emily, in childbirth in 1894, did little to slow his efforts. What changed the direction of his research was his discovery of how his son Lionel was being treated by the nanny, a woman known as Nanny Gibson. Daisy himself had been raised by an affectionate nanny, and for years assumed that the woman he hired was treating his son in the same way, occasionally reminding her not to be too lenient. He was shocked to learn that Nanny Gibson routinely beat the boy and administered Gregory's powder, a potent and vile-tasting laxative, as punishment. Y'all keep an eye out for your nannies and babysitters. Make sure to have a camera somewhere. Do not trust these people. I don't care who they are. Realizing that his son actually lived in terror of the nanny, Daisy immediately fired her. Good. He carefully interviewed several prospective nannies afterwards and was surprised to learn of the vast range of their approaches to child rearing. Some nannies showered their charges with affection, while others applied disciplinary measures worse than Nanny Gibson. Daisy eventually hired a replacement nanny, but regularly had to bring Lionel to his workshop so he could keep her under close supervision. This must have seemed like paradise to the child, who demonstrated nothing but obedience in Daisy's presence. The discrepancy between Nancy Gibson's account of his son's behavior and his own observations prompted Daisy to begin an investigation into optimal child rearing practices. Given his mathematical inclination, he viewed a child's emotional state as an example of a system in unstable equilibrium. His notebooks from the period included the following: indulgence leads to misbehavior, which angers the nanny and prompts her to deliver punishment more severe than is warranted. The nanny then feels regret and subsequently overcompensates with further indulgence. It is an inverted pendulum, prone to oscillations of ever-increasing magnitude. If we can only keep the pendulum vertical, there is no need for subsequent correction. Daisy tried importing his philosophy of child rearing to a series of nannies for Lionel, only to have each report that the child was not obeying her. It only appears not to have occurred to him that Lionel might behave differently with the nannies than with Daisy himself. Instead, he concluded that the nannies were too temperamental to follow his guidelines. In one respect, he concurred that the conventional wisdom of the time, which held that women's emotional nature made them unsuitable parents. Where he differed was in thinking that too much punishment could be just as detrimental as too much affection. Eventually, he decided that the only nanny that could adhere to the procedures he outlined would be one he built himself. In letters to colleagues, Daisy offered multiple reasons for turning his attention to a mechanical nursemaid. First, such a machine would be radically easier to construct than a teaching engine, and selling it offered a way to raise the funds needed to perfect the latter. Second, he saw it as an opportunity for early intervention. By putting children in the care of machines while they were still infants, he could ensure they didn't acquire bad habits that would have to be broken later. Children are not born sinful, but become so because of the influence of those whose care we have placed them in, end quote, he wrote. Quote, rational child rearing will lead to to rational children, end quote. It's indicative of the Victorian attitude towards children that at no point does Daisy suggest that children should be raised by their parents. Of his own participation in Lionel's upbringing, he wrote, quote, "I realize that my presence entails risk of the very danger I wish to avoid. For while I am more rational than any woman, I am not immune to the boy's expression of delight or dejection. But progress can only occur one step at a time, and even if it is too late for Lionel to fully reap the benefits of my work, he understands its importance. Perfecting this machine means other parents will be able to raise their children in a more rational environment than I was able to provide for my own." For the manufacture of the automatic nanny, Daisy contracted with Thomas Bradford & Co., maker of the sewing and laundry machines. The majority of the nanny's torso was occupied by a spring-driven clockwork mechanism that controlled the feeding and rocking schedule. Most of the time, the arms formed a cradle for rocking the baby. At specified intervals, the machine would raise the baby into feeding position and expose an India rubber nipple connected to a reservoir of infant formula. In addition to the crank handle for winding the mainspring, the nanny had a smaller crank for powering the gramophone player used to play lullabies. The gramophone had to be unusually small to fit within the nanny's head, and only custom stamped discs could be played on it. There was also a foot pedal near the nanny's base used for pressuring the waist pump, which provided suction for the pair of hoses leading from the baby's rubber diaper to a chamber pot. Interesting. The automatic nanny went on sale in March 1901 with the following advertisement appearing in the Illustrated London News: "Do not leave your child in the care of a woman whose character you know nothing about. Embrace the modern practice of scientific child rearing by purchasing Daisy's patent automatic nanny. The advantages of this unique substitute for a nanny are: it teaches your baby to adhere to a precise schedule of feeding and sleeping. It soothes your baby without administrating stupefying narcotics. It works day and night, requires no separate quarters, and cannot steal. It will not expose your child to disreputable influences." Consider these testimonials from customers. Quote, "Our child is now perfectly behaved and a delight to be near," by Mrs. Manhendrick, Cohen Bay. Another quote, "An immeasurable improvement over the Irish girl we previously employed. It is a blessing for her household," end quote, by Mrs. Hastings Eastbourne. Quote, "I wish I had been raised by one myself," end quote, by Mrs. Godwin Andoversford. Thomas Bradford & Co., 68 Fleet Street, London and Manchester. It is worth noting that rather than promoting the raising of rational children, the advertising preys on parents' fear of untrustworthy nursemaids. This may have been shrewd marketing on the part of Daisy's partners at Thomas Bradford & Co., but some historians think it reveals Daisy's actual motives for developing the automatic nanny. While Daisy always described his proposed teaching working engine as an assistive tool for governesses. He positioned the automatic nanny as a complete replacement for the human nanny. Given that the nannies came from working class, while governesses typically came from upper class, this suggests an unconscious class prejudice on Daisy's part. Whatever the reason for its appeal, the automatic nanny enjoyed a brief period of popularity, with more than 150 being sold within 6 months. Daisy maintained that the families that used the automatic nanny were entirely satisfied with the quality of care provided by the machine. Although there was no way to verify this, the testimonials used in the advertisements were likely invented, as was customary at the time. What is known for certain is that in September 1901, an infant named Nigel Hawthorne was fatally thrown from an automatic nanny when its mainspring snapped. Word of the child's death spread quickly, and Daisy was faced with a deluge of families returning their automatic nannies. He examined the Hawthorne's nannies and discovered that the mechanism had been tampered with in an attempt to enable the machine to operate longer before needing to be rewound. He published a full-page ad in which, while trying not to blame the Hawthorne parents, he insisted that the automatic nanny was entirely safe if operated properly, but his efforts were in vain. No one would entrust their child to the care of Daisy's machine. To demonstrate that the automatic nanny was safe, Daisy boldly announced that he would entrust his next child to the machine's care. If he had successfully followed through with this, he might have restored public confidence in the machine. But Daisy never got the chance because of his habit of telling prospective wives of his plans for their next offspring. That's hilarious. The inventor framed his proposal as an invitation to partake in a grand scientific undertaking, and was baffled that none of the women he courted found this an appealing prospect. After several years of rejection, Daisy gave up on trying to sell the automatic nanny to a hostile public, concluding that society was not sufficiently enlightened to appreciate the benefits of a machine-based child care. He likewise abandoned his plans to build a teaching engine and resumed his work on pure mathematics. He published papers on number theory and lectured at Cambridge until his death in 1918 during the global influenza pandemic. The automatic nanny might have been completely forgotten were it not for the publication of an article in the London Times in 1925 titled Mishaps of Science. You gotta take it in, dang. It described in derisive terms a number of failed inventions and experiments, including the automatic nanny, which was labeled a monstrous contraption whose inventor surely despised children. Reginald's son, Lionel Dacey, who by then had become a mathematician himself and was continuing his father's work in numbers theory, was outraged. He wrote a strongly worded letter to the newspaper demanding a retraction, and when it refused, he filed a libel suit against the publisher, which he eventually lost. Undeterred, Lionel Dacey began a campaign to prove that the automatic nanny was based on sound and humane child-rearing principles, self-publishing a book about his father's theories on raising rational children. Lionel Dacey refurbished the automatic nannies that had been in storage on the family estate, and in 1927 offered them for commercial sale again, but was unable to find a single buyer. He blamed this on the British upper class's obsession with status, because household appliances were now being marketed towards the middle class as electric servants. He claimed upper class families insisted on hiring human nannies for appearance's sake, whether they provided better care or not. Those who worked with Lionel Daisy blamed it on his refusal to update the automatic nanny in any way. He ignored one business advisor's recommendation to replace the machine's spring-driven mechanism with an electric motor, and fired another who suggested marketing without the Daisy name. Like his father, Lionel Daisy eventually decided to raise his own child with the automatic nanny, but rather than look for a willing bride, he announced in 1932 that he would adopt an infant. He did not offer any updates in the following years, prompting a gossip columnist to suggest that the child had died at the machine's hands. But by then there was so little interest in the automatic nanny that no one ever bothered to investigate. The truth regarding the infant would never have come to light if not for the work of Dr. Thackeray Lampstead. In 1938, Lampstead was consulting at the Brighton Institute of Mental Subnormality, known as Baylis House, when he encountered a child named Edmund Daisy. According to admission records, Edmund had been successfully raised using an automatic nanny until the child was 2 years old, the age at which Lionel Daisy felt it appropriate to switch him to human care. He found that Edmund was unresponsive to his commands, and shortly afterwards a physician diagnosed the child as feeble-minded. Judging such a child an unsuitable subject for demonstrating the nanny's efficacy, Lionel Daisy committed Edmund to the Brighton Institute. What prompted the Institute's staff to seek Lampstead's opinion was Edmund's diminutive stature. Although he was 5, his height and weight were those of the average 3-year-old. The children at the Brighton Institute were generally taller and healthier than those at similar asylums, a reflection of the fact that the Institute staff did not follow the still common practice of minimal interaction with the children. In providing affection and physical contact to their charges, the nurses were preventing the condition now known as psychological dwarfism, in which emotional stress reduces a child's level of growth hormones and which was prevalent in orphanages at the time. The nurses quite reasonably assumed that Edmund Daisy's delayed growth was the result of substituting the automatic nanny's mechanical care for actual human touch, and expected him to gain weight under their care. But after 2 years as a resident at the Institute, during which the nurses had showed attention to him, Edmund had scarcely grown at all, prompting the staff to look for an underlying psychological issue or cause. Lampstead hypothesized that the child was indeed suffering from psychological dwarfism, but of a uniquely inverted variety. What Edmund needed was not more contact with a person, but more contact with a machine. His small size was not the result of the years he spent under the care of the automatic nanny. It was the result of being deprived of the automatic nanny after his father felt he was ready for human care. If this theory was correct, restoring the machine would cause the boy to resume normal growth. Lampstead sought out Lionel Daisy to acquire an automatic nanny. He gave an account of the visit in a monograph written many years later. Lionel Daisy spoke of his plans to repeat the experiment with another child as soon as he could ensure that the child's mother was a suitable stock. His feeling was that the experiment with Edmund had failed only because of the boy's native imbecility, which he blamed on the child's mother. I asked him what he knew of the child's parents, and he answered, rather too forcefully, that he knew nothing. Later on, I visited the orphanage from which Lionel Daisy had adopted Edmund and learned that from the record that the child's mother was a woman named Eleanor Hardy, who previously worked as a maid for Lionel Daisy. It was obvious to me that Edmund is in fact Lionel Daisy's own illegitimate son. The scandal. Lionel Daisy was unwilling to donate an automatic nanny to what he considered a failed experiment, but he agreed to sell one to Lamb's Head, who then arranged to have it installed in Edmund's room at the Brighton Institute. The child embraced the machine as soon as he saw it, and in the days that followed he would play happily with the toys as long as the nanny was nearby. Over the next few months, the nurses recorded a steady increase in his height and weight, confirming Lamb's Head's diagnosis. The staff assumed that Edmund's cognitive delays were congenital in nature and was content as long as he was thriving physically and emotionally. Lamb's Head, however, wondered if the consequences of the child's bond with the machine might be more far-ranging than anyone had suspected. He speculated that Edmund had been misdiagnosed as feeble-minded simply because he paid no attention to human instructors, and that he might respond better to a mechanical instructor. Unfortunately, he had no way to test the hypothesis. Even if Reginald Daisy had successfully completed his teaching engine, it would not have provided the type of instruction that Edmund required. It was not until 1946 that technology advanced to the necessary level. As a result of his lectures on radiation sickness, Lampheads had a good relationship with the scientists working at Chicago's Argonne National Laboratory and was present at a demonstration of the first remote manipulators, mechanical arms designed for the handling of radioactive materials. He immediately recognized their potential for Edmund's education and was able to acquire a pair for the Brighton Institute. Edmund was 13 years old at this point, and he had always been indifferent to attempts by staff to teach him, but the mechanical arms immediately captured his attention. Using an intercom system that emulated the low-fidelity audio of the original automatic nanny's gramophone, the nurses were able to get Edmund to respond to their voices in a way they hadn't when speaking to him directly. Within a few weeks, it was apparent that Edmund was not cognitively delayed in the manner previously believed. The staff had merely lacked the appropriate means of communicating with him. With the news of this development, Lampheads was able to persuade Lionel Daisy to visit the Institute. Seeing Edmund demonstrate a lively curiosity and inquisitive nature, Lionel Daisy realized how he had stunned the boy's intellectual growth. From Lamphead's account, he struggled visibly to contain his emotion at seeing what he had wrought in pursuit of his father's vision. A child so wedded to machines that he could not acknowledge another human being. I heard him whisper, "I'm sorry, Father." Quote, "I'm sure your father would understand that your intentions were good," end quote. misunderstand me, Mr. Lambhead. Were I any other scientist, my efforts to confirm his thesis would have been a testament to his influence, no matter what my results. But because I am Reginald Dacey's son, I have disproved his thesis twice over. Because my entire life has been a demonstration of the impact of a father's attention can have on his son. Immediately after this visit, Lionel Dacey had remote manipulators and an intercom installed in his house and brought Edmund home. He devoted himself to machine-medicated interactions with his son until Edmund succumbed to pneumonia in 1966. Lionel Dacey passed away the following year. The automatic nanny seen here is the one purchased by Dr. Lambshead to improve Edmund's care at the Brighton Institute. All the nannies in Lionel Dacey's possession were destroyed upon his son's death. The National Museum of Psychology thanks Dr. Lambshead for his donation of his unique artifact. I think that was a really good story. I googled if YouTubers are allowed to read books on their YouTube channel, and it said that generally it is okay, but that the author or the publisher can choose to sue me at any time if they choose. So I don't think I'm big enough to ask for permission, but for the sake of promoting the book, please go check this book out. A lot of their short stories are so mind-boggling. It really gives Black Mirror like utopian, dystopian, sci-fi vibes. Highly recommend. The author, Ted Chiang, he's such a good writer. Like, all of these ideas, everything is so different within each short story. For fear of retribution, this will be the only short story that I read from this book. But if you're curious, definitely go purchase it. It is a New York Times 10 best books. And this video was prompted by someone who commented that they wanted to be read to sleep, and so I made sure to do like low lighting, low lighting, and reading a book that's not too scary, or like true crimey, just something fiction. So let me know your thoughts. Did you enjoy the short story? Are you gonna purchase this book? Super good. But anyways, yeah, it concludes this video. Thank you for watching, and make sure to click on the playlist for other short stories, or click on the next video that is recommended for you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as it really helps my channel out. We are almost at 10k, and that is incredible, so I am definitely down for any suggestions on how to celebrate 10k. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in